what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Hey everyone, welcome to Primetime Crime Live. I'm your host, Lauren Conlon, and I am here with my very well-informed and smart and amazing co-host, Jarrett Ferrantino.
Good evening. I'm a little Scott Peterson out tonight. I think I just hit my limit and then we went live. So it's great to see everybody. Great to see you.
I know. It's been a lot of Scott Peterson for the last, I guess, week, I want to say, because the Netflix doc just came out. Let's just pin some of our comments. Hi, Sue. Thank you for joining us. Crazy Lemon Tart. This will be very interesting. Thanks for joining us. How's your week going, Jarrett? What's up with you? What's new?
It's good. Our producer Jay has the flu, so I'm in my home office tonight.
Yes, it's a little bit darker than we're used to, but your white shirt pops. And
we're dark for, in memory of Laci and Connor tonight too. So this is a pretty somber episode. So, otherwise my week's going really well.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. No, I think, yes, it's somber. I mean, Laci, I feel like Laci was a queen, and obviously it's super tragic, but I get extremely heated when it comes to talking about Scott. Hello, Tom. For anyone that knows the Gold Shields podcast, you will know that it's amazing. Tom is fabulous. I'm giving him a shout out. He's there. I think, Jarrett, you guys weren't on Nancy together? He was on Nancy today too, but.
Maybe. I was on this morning. Yeah, Tom was on this morning, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you were on the same episode. Maybe you were.
I think
yeah, no idea. But I'm giving him a shout out. Oh, you are so welcome, Tom. Okay, so I mean, let's get down to it, Jarrett. So we've got the Netflix documentary, which really did in my opinion, a great job of reminding us who Laci was. Obviously, a lot of the time we know victims get forgotten. And I thought that Skye Borgman did a wonderful job with helping us remember Laci and also reminding us, or me, for example, how effing guilty and gross Scott Peterson is. Sorry. Yeah, makes me gag. But what were your initial thoughts about the Netflix doc? And jump in here.
First, it's been a long time. It's been 20 years. So I did try to keep an open mind. I do come to things with a prosecution bias. I certainly know that Scott Peterson was convicted. However, I've been following the recent breaking news in his trial, the law that's come out of the death penalty portion of the trial, and then the California Innocence Project. So I went into these with a pretty open mind. But look, I can't stand when people say it was a circumstantial evidence case. Circumstantial evidence is evidence. And if you can't consider one piece of evidence in this case in a vacuum. In the law, we always talk about the totality of the circumstances. If you look from the days before, let's begin on December 9th, okay? Yeah. At some point, he began his relationship with Amber Frey. On December 9th, he buys his boat. That same day, he says to Amber Frey that he lost his wife. Mm-hmm. He began a very deliberate, intentional, strategic planning to cause the death of Laci and Connor. That's where it began. And I look at cases like this, and I've had cases like this where killers lie in wait or they plan. And I think about all of the opportunities he had to walk away. How many moments were there in their home in Modesto where they were lying there? She was very pregnant. She was beautiful. He never said to himself, maybe I should walk away from this thing. And I'm going to tell you, of both documentaries, and I watched them both, one thing jumped out at me. Laci's own words when she was writing in that baby journal. She said, Scott really wasn't that excited about the baby. Right in the journal that she knew Scott would read, Connor would read, maybe when he was older, maybe her mother would read. It's almost like Hansel and Gretel, a breadcrumb she left behind. Here was this perfect image of a life In her words, she wrote that down in that book that is supposed to be great memories of Connor before he was ever born. She dropped a huge clue. There's no getting around that. Think about that. She had to process something's wrong with Scott. Not excited about Connor. And she put pen to paper and wrote it down. To me, I would have read that entry into that journal in my opening statement. If Scott got on the stand, I would have asked him about it, and I would have read it in my closing.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you're right. I didn't really think about that. I want to add to what you said about December 8th or December 9th. That was also the day that Amber Fry's friend found out that Scott was married, and he called Scott and he said, if you don't tell her, I'm going to tell her. And Scott said, yeah, I'll tell her. Well, guess what? That very same day, he also Googled the tides at the marina. Okay. So you're right. He did start to plan that, and he started Googling, and that is something that, I don't know if this necessarily is around the time that forensics started to be able to look at your cell phones, your internet searches, but this helped a lot. And I reviewed just like bits and pieces of trial transcripts, because again, this was before trials were televised. So you have to go off, this stuff and some of, your own digging, because you can't watch these trials and say, oh my gosh. But yeah, some of his stuff, his computer, his email was very damning. And I don't know if you heard this new defense that Laci was online shopping. Have you heard that? The morning of, yeah, they said she was online shopping, and therefore, she was looking at XYZ. Therefore, he couldn't have done it because she was shopping or whatever. Well, they were able to debunk that as well through these forensic searches. So I think that a lot of what they consider to be, this is evidence of his innocence, like it has been debunked. And so the now testing of the piece of this mattress, I guess, and I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but just for people to understand the LA Innocence Project and, the whole thing with him trying to get a new trial, they're saying, well, in addition to this burglary that happened in the neighborhood that they're claiming police didn't investigate properly, which they did, by the way, they said there was a van and it was burned, and there was a mattress inside it with blood. And the judge agreed to let this fabric of the mattress be tested for Laci's DNA. I mean, I don't know at this point. It's like, sure, I will eat my words if something comes out, but like, it's not. I'm sorry. It's not. He is as guilty as the day is long. And I'm smiling because it's
people are looking for that smoking gun. There is a smoking gun. It's Scott Peterson, and all of his actions. Again, he's searching. The other thing about Scott Peterson, he wasn't some tournament fisherman. He just bought that boat, never said he bought that boat, right? Mm-hmm. Another secret. Okay. He goes out fishing for the first time on Christmas Eve. Okay. Here's a couple little for instances. Now we're assuming our fans and viewers and listeners watch those specials. If you're watching this and you didn't watch them, I don't know why you're watching this show. You're not a true crimer then. But here's the thing. Think about this. He claims at one point he confessed that he was having the affair with Amber to Laci. Okay. Let's assume for a moment he would have had to make that confession that morning. Laci was an expressive person. She had a tremendous, loyal, long-standing circle of friends. She did not tell any of them that Scott was having an affair. Okay. So let's say maybe he told her that morning. She didn't have an opportunity to tell anyone about it. So explain to me how this works, Scott. You confess to your wife, who's months into her third trimester, you're having an affair, and then you say to her, okay, honey, I'm going to either go golfing or fishing today. Have a good one. Go take the dog for a walk. That's complete. See, what I like to do is take these little morsels of evidence and start tying them together. And if you say, boy, that doesn't sound right, you know why it doesn't sound right? Because it's complete bullshit. Okay. Mm-hmm. I love, you'll take one little fact. And again, believe me when I tell you, the fact that burglary occurred within that 3-day time period across the street is extremely thought-provoking and significant. However, those two men, Todd and Pierce, those guys were confessing to anybody. Okay, you could have like a fake junior sheriff badge. They would have, the last thing they wanted, okay, was to be associated with the death of Laci Peterson. They did not want to go into jail that way. They had alibis. Here's what was ignored in documentary, I call it documentary number 2, the Peacock.
Yeah.
Because it was the second one I watched. But
Me too.
they ignored the fact that Todd and Pierce both had solid alibis on December 24th.
Yep.
So whether they robbed the house sometime after Laci went missing on the 26th, arguably maybe the morning of the 27th, they had alibis for the day she went missing. Okay. At that point, you move on with your investigation and continue to focus. And I love this. Scott says the cops are the bad guys because they were solely focused on Scott. Okay. Every time they kicked him, another nickel fell out. Like, you just keep digging, and he was digging himself to you. Why wouldn't you be? Okay, you found he's having an affair. He's lying. He didn't take a polygraph. He lied about the boat. This is the beginning. He comes home.
Yeah.
She's missing. He showers. He does laundry. He has a pizza. Okay.
Well, wait, you know what you're forgetting? And again, that was proved with forensics. Sorry to interrupt you, but he doesn't know where she is. It came out. He called everybody but Laci. What? You don't know where your wife is and you're going to call her mother and not her cell phone? Hello.
Right. Little slip up there. And that message he left for her, that voicemail, hey, beautiful, honey, this and that. Okay. Again, we're to believe he just confessed to her that he's having an affair. And he's saying, I don't have time to get the gift for Papa or something.
Yeah.
Because it was complete. Look, don't buy that bullshit. Okay.
No.
Like, sometimes the way it looks is actually the way it happened. Okay. And if he's acting strange and none of what he's saying makes sense, it's because he's lying, folks. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. You have Laci missing, okay, for days and days and days. His soon to be born son is missing. This guy is as cool as a cucumber. Okay. He's in complete control. That is a sociopath. No panic, never breaks down.
Right. And so that's what I've been saying. And I think it's kind of like when he did the Diane Sawyer interview, which I'm going to play a part of in a second. He thought, okay, he's such a narcissist and he's so not self-aware. He thought, okay, I'm going to do this interview. I'm going to show the world that I'm innocent just by speaking. And, you know, I'm going to win them over with my charm. Essentially, like he did his whole life. He won everybody over with this disgusting fake charm. Hi, Disney. 2 in 1 day. I love it. And same with Sue. So yeah, he in the Peacock interview, he sounds just as slimy, just as smug, and just as smarmy. And I thought that the director was throwing him softball questions. I mean, I thought this was just such BS. And he's like, really? They were like saying that my message was too sweet to Laci. I mean, that's just how we were. That's how we spoke to each other. Like, that's just right. That's how you were, but you had a girlfriend, like a full-blown girlfriend.
How about he tries to say his relationship with Amber was just sex and that Amber was under some delusion that it was a romantic relationship. Now, again, the conversations with Amber were recorded. He's telling her, I want to hold you. I want to take care of you. Do you believe I can do that? Does that sound like somebody who's just looking for a good time? I mean, he was a mess on that call with her. And I think
all of them. Yeah.
Innocence too. Amber Fry was a victim here. Obviously, she didn't know his story, the fact that he was married. And I think, but listening to that communication, and then when she actually confronted him with his own bullshit, he continued to lie. And he said, I lied to her and continued to lie to her because I didn't want the world to find out about her.
Right.
The reality is, if he was truly innocent, he would say to her, look, I was married the whole time. My wife is missing. I had nothing to do with it. Please, I want something with you. I don't want this to get out. You know, it was time to come clean. And he continued to feed the lies.
Yeah, he also never denied it. Specifically, he said, "Do you really think I'm evil like that?" or something silly. And Sue, we can get into this later, but I made a mini video because I really do believe that Amber Fry is a complete hero in this. And she literally was the prosecution star witness. No one's denying that. But she played such an essential role of revealing his lies, and not just right, not just white lies, not just small lies. I mean, giant lies. And we all got to hear, as you said, Jarrett, these phone calls being recorded. We got to hear firsthand how easy it was to. I mean, the oh, I'm seeing the Eiffel Tower right now. When he's at a vigil, that is so like sociopathic. I mean, that's beyond. That
This
was
guy,
like,
he lies. I've
yeah,
encountered some pretty good liars in my day. This guy lies with detail, like just provable lies, and it's just one after. It's like a Tommy gun of lies, just keep coming, just
right.
bullshit piling up. So anybody capable of that and desperate. I mean, and again, you may be saying to yourself, well, that doesn't mean he committed murder. Here's the thing: those lies, when your wife is missing, in the context of all of the evidence against you, and let's talk a little bit about some of these things are being written off as circumstantial evidence that are somewhat physical in nature.
Okay.
Uh, let's talk about Scott's shop, his storage shed, okay, which was a treasure trove of evidence, actual evidence. You
Okay.
have the rings and the resultant cement markings on the wood from the anchors that he made. Okay.
Yes.
He made up to 5 anchors. All right. And on the interview, he said, they said I made 5 anchors. There weren't 5 anchors. He never says, I didn't make 5. It's
Yeah,
always
yeah,
like
yeah,
some.
yeah. He always does that. Yes.
Yeah, because he just, there's truth, there's a lot revealed in the way he lies.
Mhm.
So you have the anchoring, you have Laci's hair on those pliers. And I think the way that they were described by the detectives, that I've had cases where flex ties were used. Okay,
Mhm.
if flex ties, industrial flex ties, were used as a manner to tie Laci to those anchors, they would have bound her hands and feet around those tarps, and he would have pulled them tight enough. The only way to achieve that tightness is with a pair of those kinds of pliers. Here's the thing: Laci did not know about that boat. She was never at that boat. Her hair is there. They talk about no DNA in the house. What about that? And
Well,
it's
the
on the
hair,
plier.
I thought the hair was confirmed to be of her maternal lineage. I mean, I don't necessarily know that the hair was confirmed to be hers, but it was confirmed to have the DNA match of her mother, which,
Right.
I don't know.
It could not
What
be
does that
ruled.
mean? I don't know.
Well, I didn't see the actual DNA results, and the wording on those is
Right.
peculiar sometimes, but they actually give in those, typically those lab reports give a number, like the odds of this being,
Okay.
we
Oh,
talked about that in Kohlberger, right? There were 9 zeros after, how much the odds of it being somebody else other than his father's DNA.
okay.
So I didn't see that in this case, and I don't know that that document was public, but
Hmm.
it says it could not rule Laci out as a contributor of that DNA. So for purposes of our conversation, we're saying it's Laci's hair. I'd be comfortable putting that forth in the prosecution to be on the defense to negate that by saying, okay, well, that's only 1 in a million. It could be one of these other people. The bottom line is, if you can get over that hill and say it's
Mhm.
hers, okay, how does it get there? How does
Yeah.
it get there? It could be contact. It could also have been her body was in that boat, and he was using those needle nose pliers to tighten those restraints.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it's very disturbing. And like you said, this is not necessarily circumstantial, right? I mean, because if it was, let's just say for all intents and purposes, it's her hair. I mean, but I feel like, and I don't mean to harp on this, I feel like that wasn't said because that's all we would hear about, right? Don't you agree? They'd be
The
like, her
way
hair.
it was said, the way it was specifically said was she could not be ruled out as a contributor. That's
Yeah.
of significance in the DNA realm. I'm not a DNA expert, but I've seen that language and have seen it as a means of identifying because they never say it's a match. They always say the proximity or the numerical significance. So I'd want to know more. But again, looking at these documentaries, they kind of gloss over that.
They do.
It's like,
100%. Well, and I felt like there was some stuff missing, but I want to get to these questions so you can kind of explain this, Jarrett. So just a double question here. Sal says, how feasible is circumstantial evidence? But Disney says, don't the jury instructions state that circumstantial evidence can be considered the same as direct evidence, which I would think so as well, but I'll let you explain that.
So, yes, I mean, the weight put, I feel like I'm fuzzy.
You are a little fuzzy. It's your connection.
Right, I'm not fuzzy now. I'm not going to move. So anyway, so to your question, the jury is the decider of the amount of weight they want to apply to a particular piece of evidence, be it circumstantial or physical. Okay, so that is a proper instruction. When you have all of the circumstantial evidence you have here, okay, that is quite a mountain of circumstantial evidence. So you may say to yourself, well, okay, you have this hair. Is that all they have? No, they have the fact that she didn't know about the boat, the fact that he bought it very recently, the fact that he said he wasn't going fishing but bought a fishing license for the 23rd and 24th. Okay, the fact that he goes fishing into the bay 90 miles away from Modesto, okay, when there are a multitude of other places he could have stopped. He describes that island to a T. Wouldn't you know it? Where on the entire planet is Laci, Peterson, and Connor's bodies recovered? Where? The very place where he went. Now, look, you don't have to be a prosecutor for 20 years or an investigative journalist for a very long time and very good at it to say, when you look at all that information, I'm starting to think this guy's guilty.
Yeah, right. And let's also not forget, he made 5 trips to that marina in different cars, okay, after she went missing in order to, not be tracked. Who knows? But, and going back to the circumstantial stuff, I guess, I mean, what are we supposed to think and what is the jury supposed to think when all of a sudden Scott is talking to a realtor about selling their house? He's trying to sell her car. He's using the nursery as a storage facility. And not only that, listen, I've been pregnant before. When I'm in my 8th month of pregnancy, if my husband wants to go 30 minutes away, I'm like, you get your ass back here. You're not going anywhere. I could pop at any moment. I don't want to do this on my own. F you, man. And it's Christmas Eve. And he's like, let me go fishing. An hour and a half away plus traffic. And then let's also remember that he said it was too cold to golf, but it's not too cold to go fishing. I mean, how stupid and narcissistic are you to think that no one's going to buy this and no one's going to question that? And then, I'm just thinking about this too. In the Peacock doc, and if you guys watch this in the chat, you can add to this, but he's like, and his delusional family also is like, I don't know why they made this narrative that he's on the run to Mexico. I have no idea why, and he's even like, why would they think that? I was just 30 miles away because I was going to someone's house. Well, I mean, let's think. What did he have, Jarrett? He had identification. He had now I have 3 brothers. Okay. Yeah. Italian family, everybody kind of looks alike except my twin. He looks nothing like me, but I don't have their identifications in my car. I don't have a multitude of credit cards. I don't have $15,000 in cash in the car. I don't dye my hair and change my appearance while my wife is missing and the heat's getting turned up. Nobody better make any comments about dyeing your hair, so it's not. No, they're talking about Scott.
Yeah. Let me say this again: Scott Peterson's he's very good at explaining little things away, one step at a time. Good luck with everything. He was getting ready to run. Okay, that again, we've talked about that. That's flight. That's consciousness of guilt. It's admissible in court. It was admissible against them. So he could explain that away. Of course, that's what he's going to say. Of course, everybody's wrong and Scott Peterson's right.
Exactly. And you know what he says in the Peacock doc? I spit out my water. He's like, I had my brother's ID because I was trying to scam this golf course into using his address to give me a deal on. And you're like, what? shut up already. Like,
Yeah.
and I tweeted this today, and I don't know if anyone saw this tweet, but he makes me so sick that they show a part of this March 2024 hearing, and the judge is asking him yes or no questions. And he answers a question with, absolutely, Your Honor. And you're just like, shut up. Like, you're such a kiss ass in life. Like, you just are so fake. And even, when Laci's mom was remembering him meeting her for the first time and how he shows up with a dozen roses for her mom and a dozen roses for Laci. It's like, come on, you courted your wife. I've been courted by my husband. I mean, any guy that's showing up, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to bash the guys if they do that, but like, you're trying so hard and you're
They called it love.
overcompensating.
I never heard the term love bombing, but that's what they said he did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. That's just
Yeah.
really overselling it. And again, I think some of the other things too we haven't really touched on in that circumstantial case. Those umbrellas.
Mm.
He had those umbrellas in his truck, just kind of as filler in his truck, and somehow they made their way back to the house when he was supposedly taking them to store them at that storage facility. Like,
Right.
you just, when you look at this thing and you build that circumstantial wall, there's only one conclusion. He's guilty. And the other thing they talk about, there wasn't a sign of struggle in the house. There wasn't DNA in the house. It was their house. You rest assured, Laci Peterson's DNA was in that house. Scott Peterson's DNA was in that house because they lived there. If he grabbed her from behind, if he strangled her, okay, Laci was a small, very pregnant young woman, okay? Scott Peterson was committed to bringing about her death at that point. He could have strangled her with little struggle, little fight, and subdued her very quickly, wrapped her in that tarp, took her out of there, covered her with those umbrellas, drove to the shop, put her in the boat, covered her with the tarp, towed that out to the bay, put the bay in the water, had her anchored from the anchors he had fixed while he was at the shop. The timeline adds up.
Yeah.
And then he rolls her over into the bay. That's what happened here.
Oh yeah. And so police, they had assumed that he did this on Christmas Eve, and then he disposed of her body. I'm sorry, the 23rd, and then disposed of her body on Christmas Eve. And also the police found a bunched up rug. I don't know if you remember that, a bunched up rug in the corner. Yeah, by the door, maybe because, she was pushed up against it, whatever. So I want to pin this legacy because we haven't talked about this yet. There was actually 11 people that Garrigo said they all claimed they saw Laci walking the dog that morning. Okay, well, if you guys remember, nobody testified. There were no witnesses at that trial that said, we definitely saw Laci walking this dog. Well, why? So why all of a sudden in this documentary are all these people coming forward after 20 years? You wouldn't think that if that was true, that you would come forward immediately. That's number one. Number two, Laci's doctor had told her to stop walking the dog. The dog was ginormous. It would pull her. She couldn't manage at that point. So her mother, her doctor, and a few of her friends confirmed she had not been walking the dog. That wasn't happening. So that's number two. Number three, the people in the documentary are like, yes, we saw a very pregnant woman walking a dog with a white shirt and black pants. When Laci was retrieved from the bay, she was wearing khaki pants. So, and then number four, they all had different times. The timing was not, and in the documentary, the Peacock one, they're like, it was exactly 10:45.
Yeah,
like,
no way. That
cool.
time doesn't add up.
But like, so why didn't you tell Garrigos that 20 years ago? I'm not buying it.
Garrigos is a rock star. He does a great job. His job is to defend his client. But the reality is, again, I was not moved by those witnesses. Let's assume they're telling the truth partially, and they saw her at some point. They saw her that morning. That does not mean Scott Peterson's guilt. I love this. Like, they take the one piece of the state's case and say, they said 10:18, the dog was returned and the neighbor found the dog. That means if it was after 10:18, Scott didn't kill her. Okay. Do you ever think people are wrong about time? They are. And these are estimates of time. Could she have walked the dog prior to 10 o'clock? Yes. Could they have seen her prior to 10 o'clock? Yes. So I wasn't, to me, that did not make Scott Peterson innocent. When considering everything else in the case and the uncertainty of the times, I think some of the presentation of the Peacock documentary, which I thought was fascinating. I think you get an interview with Scott Peterson. I thought it was great. I think the manner in which she questioned him was to keep him talking sometimes and to continue that conversation into the next visit. They would only get 15-minute blocks. So there's a little bit of stroking, I think, that probably had to go on there. I mean, I do documentaries. I know how that works if somebody wants to get that interview. But at the same time, I do think that they sugarcoated some of the evidence a little bit. They didn't tell the whole story, and you really could never. But that timeline, they were really wedded to that timeline. And that's not as powerful as that evidence came out when it was reported.
No, because again, like why, where were you guys in the first trial? It doesn't make sense to me. That's all. Where I'm just like, if you had all this, why didn't you use it? Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Here's the other thing, Lauren. They're not subject. You're in a documentary. You're sitting in the comfort of sometimes your own home. You're not subject to cross-examination. Right. Your memory isn't being tested. You're sitting there with a producer from the documentary, and you're just spouting off this information unchallenged.
Unchallenged. Yep, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's crazy. And Disney, I'm with you on this. How close were these people that they're like, it was definitely her? Well, they had technically the wrong outfit. If she was in fact walking the dog that morning and then she was found in the bay, you know, she had different pants on. So and sure, like, you know, you could change your clothes, but it's not adding up once again. But I want to, if people haven't eaten, hopefully you have an empty stomach, because I would like to play part of the Diane Sawyer interview that he did back in 2002 when he thought this would help him. Scott thought, yeah, I'm going to come out. And this, what I found on YouTube, it's missing a little bit, and we don't have to watch it in full. I might just speed it up a little bit. But I think what you'll find here is the way, and if you haven't watched it in a while, just buckle up, because the way he answers questions is just like, it's like, I think with Jarrett, like what you said, he just doesn't, he has this way of avoiding them. And then she says something like, you know, we saw reports of this. And he goes, well, I haven't seen that report. Well, you're not denying it. You're just
how about answer the merits of the contention, right? But the other thing he says, those reports were edited. He was like the original fake news guy. He was saying like the reports were edited. It was right? Yeah. It's like, guy, these are your answers. Like, it's Diane Sawyer. She's asking you a question, and I thought that interview was fascinating. But I'm anxious to see it.
No, totally. Hold on, I got a new computer, so keep talking for a minute while I enter my password to be able to record.
I just want to say he did a lot of these interviews, and they got progressively worse, including the one he did 20 years later that aired very recently. I think that in 20 years, he still hasn't come up with a compelling story. And he's still, you know, there's no real cure for sociopathy. I think you have it, and 20 years later, you still have it.
Yeah, no, totally. All right, this should be good now. Okay, let me share this. Let me put it up all the way.
I think everybody sitting at home wants the answer to the same question. Did you murder your wife?
No, I did not. And I had absolutely nothing to do with her disappearance. And use the word murder. And yeah, I mean, that is a possibility.
I'm going to speed it up.
It's not one we're ready to accept, and it creeps in my mind late at night and early in the morning. And during the day, all we can think about is the right resolution is to find her well.
But as you know, increasingly, in the public, suspicion has turned on you.
Yes, definitely.
Did you ever hit her? Did you ever injure her?
No. My God, no. Violence towards women is unapproachable. It is.
Okay, sorry. I have to stop like really quick for a few things. I mean, violence towards women is unapproachable. What about Laci? He doesn't even say Laci. He doesn't even say her name. And then, sorry, go ahead.
He keeps looking down. If you watch, every time he's about to spew a lie, he looks away from Diane Sawyer. Now, his body is leaning forward. He's trying to be in her face a little bit, showing that he's not afraid. He has nothing to hide. The second he gets into his lies, he looks down and away. And that's very
Ooh.
telling to me. So watch it back again. The
Okay.
second he says, watch what he does.
Okay, and when, just one more thing, when she said, "Did you kill your wife?" and he's like, "No, no," and he says, "I did not," but you can barely hear him. He goes, "No, I did not."
And he also smiles.
It's not exactly. It's not funny. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. I'll go back to everybody. Good, not gagging too much. Great.
The most disgusting act to me, and I know that suspicion has turned me, and it's turned me, one, because I'm her husband, and that's a natural thing, and I've heard all the statistics on all the news shows about that being, someone that a husband, ex-husband, or boyfriend that is statistically the one who would be responsible for her disappearance. And I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Did you ever hit her? Did you ever injure her?
No, never. I was answering your question because of the suspicion that's been turned to me, and it turned to me because of the inappropriate romantic that I had with Amber Fry.
Amber Fry went public about the romance after seeing all the stories about Laci Peterson's disappearance.
I met Scott Peterson November 20th, 2002. I was introduced to him. I was told he was unmarried.
Amber Fry came forward.
I'm glad you did.
You are?
Definitely.
Thrilled.
Nice.
He's thrilled she
I
came
know.
forward.
shows
Shut up, Scott.
What a person of character she is, and it allows us to get back looking for Laci.
Did you tell her that you were not married?
I did. And then when Laci disappeared, I called her, and admittedly it wasn't immediately. It was a couple days after Laci's disappearance. I telephoned her and told her the truth.
The truth.
That I was married, that Laci's disappeared. She didn't know about it at that point. And then she contacted the police.
But Fry says she first found out about Laci from the news, not from Scott.
Were you in love with her?
Eyes.
Was this the first time? Are there others out there?
No.
There's no one else who can come forward.
No. I owe a tremendous apology to everyone.
Had you told anyone? Did you tell police?
Told the police immediately.
When?
That was the first night we were together. So the police, I spent with the police.
You told them about her?
Yeah, from December 24th on.
That wasn't true, and Scott Peterson called us after the interview to set the record straight. He said he never told the police about his affair with Amber Fry, but claims he did tell his wife.
Did your wife find out about it?
I told my wife.
When?
In early December.
Yeah, just really quick, that I pinned Disney's comment because he had such an easy time lying. He said that so casually. Yes, I told the police immediately, like right when I spoke to them. No, he didn't. Are you kidding
They
me?
missed that detail, right? First of all, that interview was recorded. They specifically asked him, "Do you have problems in your marriage? Is there anything going on? Were you fighting?" No. He was just sitting back in his Carhartt jacket. No.
He cannot keep track of his own lies. And I think we all just witnessed him so easily, or lying so easily. He's just like, yeah, I told them immediately. Sorry, I had to stop it for that.
Did it cause a rupture in the marriage?
It was not a positive, obviously. It's inappropriate, but it was not something that we weren't dealing with.
A lot of arguing?
No. I can't say that even she was okay with the idea, but it wasn't anything that would break us apart.
There wasn't a lot of anger?
No.
Do you really expect people to believe that an 8.5-month pregnant woman learns her husband has had an affair and is saintly and casual about it? Accommodating? Makes a peace with it?
Well, you don't know. No one knows our relationship with us. And that's at peace with it, not happy about it.
Why did you tell her?
It was the right thing.
Because again, you know that people sitting at home have imagined that either you were in love with someone else, therefore you decided to get rid of this entanglement, namely your wife and your child, or there was just an angry confrontation.
Neither of those was the case. It's that simple.
He insisted all was well between him and Laci.
Tell me about the state of your marriage. What kind of marriage was it?
God, the first word that comes to mind is glorious. We took care of each other
Sorry.
very well. She was amazing. He is amazing.
When Scott Peterson's parents and other family members joined the interview, they said their faith in his innocence never wavered, even though they were surprised about the affair.
Susan, what was your reaction when you heard?
I was very shocked, to be quite honest. It's Scott's character.
And when you hear people now out in the country say, did he do it? What do you want to say to them?
He couldn't have if
Possible.
it's impossible. If he knew Scott, he's the gentlest soul I think I've ever known.
The police interviewed Scott Peterson 3 times, but after he got a lawyer, he did not talk to them again. His house was searched twice, and more questions about his behavior began to surface.
A neighbor says that the first thing that Laci did every morning was pull open the curtains. But this morning, they were never pulled open.
Yeah, they were down when I returned. It's very common in the summer that she opens up the curtains. But again, we're talking about a day that, I don't know what it was, probably 40 degrees that day or something. And during the winter, we don't open the curtains to keep the house warm.
Nothing to that. Nothing suspicious.
No, I mean, certainly I wish if something had happened to her in the house, I wish they'd been open so someone maybe they'll stop it in the winter. Who opens their curtains for the draft?
Another story that is out there is that the kitchen was spotless.
Sorry, am I missing something? Opening curtains makes a draft come in through your window? I guess that's weird to me, but I don't know. I maybe just don't know, but
Just the family gathered around him after and openly discussing the affair is pretty compelling, all while Laci's missing. I mean, it's crazy.
no, I know. And talking about like how wonderful Scott is while Laci is missing and Connor is missing. You're so right. This is just
And the other thing about his glorious marriage, okay? He tells Amber
Glorious.
Fry, these are his words, all right? When America isn't watching, at least as far as he knows, Amber says to him, here's how conniving he is. He says, Amber says, you told me you lost your wife, right?
Yep.
And he says there's more than one way to be lost. Yet he describes his marriage as glorious.
Glorious. Glory. I mean, and I'm sorry. Like guys, whoever is
You mental gymnastics. You have to do mental gymnastics to not say, like, a guy, again, and everybody's probably thinking, or the doubters are probably thinking, that doesn't make him guilty of murder. It means you cannot believe a word this person says. Okay?
Exactly.
Including, I was going to go golfing, I went fishing. I was out at the bay casually. That's where I chose. All of those, he has no credibility. When you're lying, when a loved one is missing and you're lying about small details, okay? And I always use the Murdoch case. He got hung up. He didn't go down to the coops, remember? But oops, there was the video of him talking down there, okay?
Yeah.
When your loved ones are missing or die tragically, and you're lying about little things, you got problems. When you're lying about obvious, provable facts, you got major problems, okay?
Yeah.
If he didn't care about Amber Fry and all that stuff coming out, like, that was a big one. I'm not sitting here saying he's guilty because he had an affair. I'm saying this guy lies like no one has ever seen somebody lie.
Yeah.
And doesn't care. And he's lying to protect himself because he killed her. It's that simple.
Yes, I agree. And I was going to say what Taryn said, like, who describes their marriage as glorious? If you were asked, even if you have a great marriage, I don't know anyone who would say my marriage is glorious, or just, he didn't even say my marriage is, he just said glorious. Like, I mean, if you ask me I'd be like, I love my husband. My marriage is, it's great. It's fine. It's, I don't know. Like, how, I just wouldn't sit there and be like, it's glorious.
Certainly you wouldn't say that. Like, you would not say that when you're in the same interview discussing the fact that you were. Here's the other thing. He was living another life with Amber Fry. He was posing for pictures, attending parties. This wasn't somebody he met for like sexual dalliances here and there. He was building a life with her. He knew her daughter. Like this, he tried to write it off as that.
Did you know that? He literally picked up her daughter from daycare. So it definitely wasn't just an affair, but yeah, I'll play the rest of this really quickly.
And in fact, there was still a wet mop around, which indicated somebody had cleaned something very recently.
Laci was mopping the floors when I left that morning. Yes, the house was spotless. She had a cleaning lady on Monday, the 23rd.
So if the cleaning lady had been there, why have to clean again?
Dog, 2 cats.
Okay.
Muddy backyard. She mopped those floors every day. And I emptied the bucket when I returned that afternoon.
There was one report that a neighbor had seen you loading something into a vehicle.
I haven't seen that report.
Did you load anything into a vehicle?
I know.
Anything large?
Some umbrellas, some market umbrellas. Those are those umbrellas and stands that are 8 feet in diameter or something like that.
When did you do that?
That way.
If all these actions seem suspicious, they're still circumstantial.
I want to go back to a couple of other questions people have. I've heard so many people say, Christmas Eve, you have a very pregnant wife, and you decide to go fishing?
Mhm.
What does that say about the two of you?
Well, we had plans that evening with Laci's mom, over at her house. Frankly, Christmas preparations were done.
What did you get her for Christmas?
Oh, a Louis Vuitton wallet.
Ugh, he makes me sick when he says that. Oh,
But
Louis Vuitton wallet.
preparations were made. Her plan for the day was to prepare gingerbread cookies. My day was open to, play golf or go fishing. I chose fishing that day, which is, a choice I made, and I obviously regret now. If I could just decide to stay home, that's what would have happened.
I noticed during the interview he had not yet talked about something.
You haven't mentioned your son.
It's so hard.
Their baby boy was due on February 16th.
Tell me about the nursery.
The one Laci said he wasn't excited about.
Mm-hmm.
That door
So hard.
is closed for someone to put in there. But it's ready.
Diane Sawyer's a savage, man. She goes right at
Throughout the interview, he insisted he was innocent.
Are you afraid police will arrest you?
No. I know there's no basis. I mean, I had nothing to do with their disappearance. So there's no possible evidence or anything like that.
Have they given you reason to think that you're their prime suspect?
Yeah. I mean, with with the search warrants for the cars and things like that, certainly. With the a search warrant for the home, like it's specific to a car. Obviously, they're looking at me.
Yeah. So this interview, I did notice, let me move this. They left out, because it was, I don't know, it was copied from ABC, whatever. Maybe they couldn't do this. But if people remember, and Sue, you might remember, because you said you've watched this a million times, and so have I. Diane Sawyer asked him to describe Laci, or she says, tell me what you loved about her, or tell me what, whatever. And he can't say anything. He actually says, all you have to do is look at her picture. That's what he says. And I was like, I am horrified at that. I am so horrified at that, with a number of other things. But something else that is brought up in the Peacock documentary is that they and Scott's family, they think that he's innocent because when police told Scott that they recovered the bodies from the bay and it was Laci and Connor, that they saw a single tear. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but they're like, nope, he's innocent. He had a tear roll down his face, so he's innocent. I'm like, what?
We call those crocodile tears, but crocodile tear. But
Tear, yeah, tear.
Let me say this too. So he could be crying because he knows the gig is up. Oops, they happen to find her in the very bay I described. That's the other thing. Think about this. And I know I alluded to this fact, but how dumb are people? This was 90 miles away. Okay, let's say it was a burglary. You think the wet bandits that were burglarizing the neighborhood on Christmas, right? Yeah. They just so happened to take Laci's body and dump it in the very bay an hour and a half away that Scott was fishing in his boat that may or may not have contained 5 anchors that nobody knew that he bought.
Yes, Jarrett, that could have happened. Okay, that could no.
Come on.
I know, and I want to know: are we missing anything like that's like big here? That really, I'm trying to think because I had all of these points and all of these.
Here's a point. What if that DNA comes? Let's just play devil's advocate a little bit. Mm-hmm. What if that 15-inch piece of duct tape that is awaiting testing comes back and there's no match for the DNA. It's not Scott's DNA. It's not Todd or Pierce's DNA, right?
Yeah.
But it's unmatched. Does that mean Scott Peterson is not guilty? Everything we know about DNA at this point, first of all, duct tape is sticky. It was on her pants. It was in the bay. It was on the boat. It was. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean? It's certainly a compelling piece of evidence. It's something worthy of further investigation if that's the case. Okay.
Yeah.
But
No.
it does not change anything when it comes to all of the evidence against Scott Peterson.
Right.
You have a sticky surface that has come in contact with God knows how many different areas where DNA could have been located, and then ultimately is in the bay for all this time. To me, it doesn't change a thing. Now, if it's the identity of somebody that was a suspect, we may have to have another conversation, and I'm wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to me, I don't see a path to, overturning the conviction here for Scott Peterson.
No. And like I said, I hope he didn't profit off of this documentary. If he did, I will also be sick to my stomach if I added to his pockets by watching it. I obviously was I was very curious, and upon watching it, and I think I thought maybe that, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought maybe he could be smarter than I gave him credit for, and saying, okay, it's been 20 years, or maybe he would, I feel strongly that the Menendez brothers, for example, this is probably for another time, but I feel strongly that they've served their time for their crimes. And
different situation. They're not saying they didn't do it.
Yeah, no, totally. But I guess I'm just saying they came out and they spoke years later. They told us their circumstances, their story. And I'm like, wow, okay, I feel a lot differently than I did growing up and hearing this. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll feel differently. Maybe Scott Peterson will have something to say that's worth my time and worth listening to. But again, I was so sick to my stomach. I was disturbed to my core because he essentially gave the same interview that he did to Diane Sawyer, but this time in a jail cell.
Think about it. It was post 9/11. It wasn't that long ago, right? Put it in context. And bullshit doesn't get better looking after 20 years. It's still bullshit.
Yeah.
Like I've seen this. I was doing this for 20 years. We would recycle these killers. They'd come back for an appeal. There'd be a new version of events. Still bullshit. You're still the guy that did this, right? So I didn't have any big expectations. I think people are misinformed though. One thing I think that's worth noting, the penalty portion of Scott Peterson's case was overturned. And I think there was some confusion and people thought that his conviction was overturned. You can overturn a penalty component of a case absent any consideration of the merits of the underlying crime. The issue there was the death penalty portion was overturned because they believed, the court found that they were striking jurors who felt strongly one way about the death penalty, against the death penalty, but admitted they could keep an open mind. Right. Okay, when you're selecting a death penalty juror, that the voir dire process, Nancy Grace hates when we use Latin on that show. I get yelled at a lot. But voir dire is this search for the truth. And in the death penalty cases, you individually question during the voir dire process each juror, and you would say to them, could you impose death? Do you have a religious or conscientious objection to the death penalty? And many times, I live in northeastern Pennsylvania. This is a Roman Catholic area pretty much. They may say, hey, look, it's kind of against my religion. I don't know that I can do it. So then I explore that. I say, how long have you held this belief? If the court instructed you, the law justified death, could you keep an open mind? Oftentimes people say, yeah, I'd be able to keep an open mind. That juror should not be stricken for cause at that point. They've acknowledged they can keep an open mind. In the Peterson case, in a review of those transcripts, they were being stricken. And so in the end, they said, hey, look, he didn't strategically get a jury of his peers for the penalty portion, which was the same jury. But nevertheless, that was not a commentary whatsoever on the strength of the prosecution for the death of Laci Peterson. Different consideration.
Sorry, can you say that again? I guess hold on. What you just said, the penalty.
Whole thing?
Well, no, not the whole thing. Sorry. The last sentence, the penalty had really nothing to do with
the penalty phase being overturned. So the penalty phase being overturned had nothing to do with whether or not he was guilty of killing Laci Peterson. It really turned on whether or not that jury was properly questioned in the voir dire process.
Okay.
So
I get it now. Yeah.
and I think people felt like, oh my God, Scott Peterson's getting a new trial because of that issue, and he wasn't.
No, because this was 2020 and they just overturned his death sentence
In
to a
21.
life sentence. Right,
Right.
right. And just going back to something else he said, actually, at the beginning of the Peacock documentary, and I don't know if anyone else caught this, and I should have written it down, but what he said, and I'll get it back, but he essentially said he wants to speak out, not necessarily because he's innocent, but because he feels like his family is so hurt at this point. And you're just like, and I always refer to Jack Fox, deception lie detector expert. He says order matters. And so he mentioned something about the truth, that people care about the truth, like, or whatever. He mentioned that last in his answer, where it's like, oh yeah, truth doesn't really matter. I'm going to say it last here. But yeah, I really hope I didn't help line his pockets at all, or with commissary money or some shit like that. I just hope by watching the documentary, you know what I mean?
Well, look, after all of what I have seen, I thought they were both pretty well done. If I could offer my criticism or thoughts on the documentaries, I thought they were both compelling, but my mind didn't change at all. His conduct and his behavior is still extremely bizarre. And he appears to me, when I consider the evidence and his demeanor, someone extremely capable of doing exactly what happened here, of killing Laci and his unborn son, Connor. And I think, and again, I felt this way 20 years ago, but 20 years later, I have a little bit more experience, a little bit more life experience. This guy did not want a family. He wanted to live a very, very selfish life and, catered to his own individual whims. And the walls were closing in on him. He got desperate.
Yeah, you're right. He did not want a family. Absolutely not. And I'm just going to pin this.
And remember, Laci said it. She said it.
Right. In her journal. Yeah. If you're Sal, I guess, are you speaking about the Peacock documentary? I would assume that his lawyer had to approve whatever he said in the Peacock documentary, or at least review it. But I don't know for a fact, but I would absolutely think so. Right.
Well, I'm sure that might've been something that was agreed to ahead of time.
Yeah.
But this is a guy who has sat for multiple interviews in the past. They're hoping to get a new trial. So anything he said, and just to your point, any of these statements is admissible in that courtroom. I've used TV interviews in my prosecutions. I've actually called the anchors, famous anchors in our region, to the stand that conducted interviews of my defendants. In one of my cases, they were the very last witness I called. I said the anchor's name, and the jury was like, wow, it comes in live.
Yeah.
Sit down. I have this big screen pulled out, and I showed that interview, because this is a statement not to law enforcement, not under a hot light, to a credible, reputable news anchor in our region. It was very powerful. So
wow.
Anything Scott Peterson has said, and I was talking with Nancy Grace today. We were talking about the Crystal Rogers case. And in that case, Nancy's episode and her interview of the defendant in that case has been secured and admitted for the upcoming trial. And Nancy was wondering if she's going to have to testify. If I was prosecuting it, I'd bring her in live and I'd have her authenticate the interview and I'd play it. So
imagine Nancy testifying. Oh my God.
Yeah, she may very well end up on the stand. So good call on that guy's part.
Wait, it's so funny because I've been watching, with the Scott documentary, and I think I recently watched an Aaron Hernandez one as well. I love, because every single crime doc has at least 3 clips of Nancy just being sassy AF, just being,
Yep.
Oh, we lost you. We lost your video. But yeah, it's like, it's not a crime documentary without Nancy Grace. And yes, this is absolutely Nancy on the witness stand. Heck yes. And Sal, the one watch with Diane Sawyer, I don't think his attorneys had any say over anything, but I'm sure they tried to coach him on what to say. I mean, who knows? But oh yeah, that's so true. Her Nightline interview, right? That was interesting. I don't know if we lost Jarrett. I'm not
I'm
really
here. I don't know why my camera went out. See this? I
Oh.
need Jay.
Yeah, you're Jay.
Hold on.
Wow.
Hold on.
Yeah, you're Jay. And so there's also another doc that came out on Netflix that I want to watch later tonight because I'm sick of Scott Peterson. But again, Laci's a queen. I want to watch the Aaron McNair documentary, the Steve McNair one. I think that looks pretty good.
I'm
You guys know that
documentary out. I'm documentary out tonight. So
Oh,
I
you
might-
are? Well, what are you going to watch later?
Probably the rest of season 3 of The Bear.
Oh, okay. Oh, he's cute. He's hot, that actor. What's his name?
He's Italian. I don't know what his name is though.
Wait, that's the one I know. Yeah. You did. Wait, Sue, did you like the one with Steve McNair? Is it worth watching? I just want to know. I'm like, let me know because I need a new show. So I interviewed this actor today, Asif Mandi. He is in this show called Evil on Paramount, and I think I'm gonna watch that tonight. You guys definitely know Asif. He's like, I don't know, he's pretty well known, but unfortunately, his audio was so bad that I can't use the interview for a podcast. So I'm gonna have to transcribe it and write an article or something. Okay, Sue says Aaron McNair is worth watching, but she has a question or two. Interesting. Okay, we can discuss this after I watch it. We can totally talk about this on my next live stream that I do without Jarrett, so he doesn't have to hear us unless you want to hear it, Jarrett. I mean,
I'm going to watch your interview with Frank Stallone.
Oh my gosh.
I watched some of it.
Well, Frank, can I just tell you, I forget that he's 74. This guy, I had him on the phone because he's like, I can't get StreamYard. What do I do? And I'm like, you just do this. And then like Dizzy and the chat was helping and Disney, and he had to like download Chrome and he's like, fuck, he's like swearing. And it was literally the funniest thing ever. He is so funny. And I kind of wanted him to like not talk about politics, you know? He can't help himself.
He went there.
Right off the bat. Wait, what'd you say?
I saw he went there. I caught a little bit of it. And he was talking politics. So
oh my God. I was like,
I'm a little bit, I'm documentaried out and I'm like conventioned out and everything else. I just need a break from it.
I hear you. I know.
We got like 75 more days.
Wait, what'd you say?
75 more days, I think, till the election. So it's like,
yeah. Oh,
I'm taking a break. Then I'll get back into it.
Wait, hold on. I'm so glad, Disney, that you said this. He is such a respectful guy and he's not obnoxious about his politics. And he really is, he's sweet and nice about it. But I still I really wanted to avoid it very badly. And that's why I was hoping he'd hop on a little bit early. And so I could be like, hey, please just don't do this to me. And unfortunately, he hopped on 15 minutes late. So, and Sal, you're going to watch Robinson Crusoe. I don't even know what that is, but sorry, I feel bad. I'm sure it sounds good, Sal. I hope you enjoy that. All right, guys. Well, I don't want to say this was fun because
we did make sure we did a God's Misfits update today too. We talked about the latest filings. There was a hearing today. If there's any developments, we're going to get out in front of that. And we have a little project we're working on for that, Lauren and I, which we'll have some more information on hopefully soon. But that case is one that's near and dear to our hearts. That's also known as the Kansas Moms case. So
it's Veronica Butler, and Jillian Kelly.
We're really trying to stay on top of that.
I think people in the chat, I know Disney and Sue definitely follow the updates on that. I did see that there was one court filing posted on the Oklahoma docket, but when I emailed the clerk, she's like, you might want to wait because there's going to be a lot more posted because it's like a whole project to get these. What's that?
Homework.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll have these tomorrow. But like I said, or like Jarrett said, go and listen to the video where Jarrett breaks down some of the filings because I was a little confused at some of the stuff with Discovery and why they weren't, giving some of the jewelry back and blah, blah, blah. So, it's a quick 10-minute video, but
And so we're filming, and we started filming next week. We start filming season 2 of Crime Nation. So we're really going to be documentary now, but we're working on some of those cases too, and I'm really excited about some of those. So.
Oh, and we should do a live stream, Jarrett, for Monday night. We're going to this fun event with Ana Garcia's new show. We should like stream from there and just like hop on. She's a new syndicated. What's that?
Yep, absolutely. We could say hello from there.
Yeah, that'd be fun, right? Well, yeah, we'll show you all the stuff. But okay, guys, this was really, really nice and lovely to chat with everybody, and always fun for me to shit on Scott Peterson. Always. So all right, Jarrett. Have a good night and have a good night, everybody.
Lauren.
Bye.